Yo, what's up, guys? Welcome back to the Men of Now slash Sobriety University slash Do the Work Wednesday podcast. Really excited to have Mark and Joe joining me tonight for a Valentine's Day special. And this topic, we're going to be talking about dating and recovery. And why we wanted to talk about this is because I know for me, getting clean from drugs and alcohol was not an exciting venture. Like, I wasn't looking forward to it. So it was really important for me to have something to start to work towards besides just like getting clean. I know that can be a bit boring. Um, so we're really gonna. I'm very curious to hear your guys' experience with dating and recovery and stuff, because you guys are you have a lot more experience in life in general than I do. So we're going to be diving into that today. And thank you guys for waiting. For those who are patient, we had some technical difficulties with the mics, which was weird. So it was a higher power moment. We had to turn it over, and now we are here. We're live, and we're gonna rip it. So, Joe, yeah, why don't you start us off in your kind of journey with sober dating, and then we can go into Mark's story with recovery, because this is his first time on our channel. So, take it away, Joe.
Yeah, cool. Thanks, man. Good to be back again on a Wednesday night. I missed last week. So, like, dating and recovery for me is really, it's a non-factor. And I was sober 11 years. So before I got married, I was sober, and I was sober throughout, a large part of the marriage. And coming out from a divorce, I was sober again. So I had to start, but I had been so long living in recovery for so long that it was really a non-factor. I mean, I really learned how to reacclimate into society sober by that point. Being married, I wasn't dating, obviously. So it didn't really present anything. I lived day to day sober for many years before I had to date. The only thing was, and I think y'all both have experienced with alcohol, is that's like the only drug you can say you don't do and get looked at, get funny looks. Like you kind of a little bit of an outcast for, like, why? What's wrong with this guy? Why doesn't he drink? And it also, some people get uncomfortable when I'm not drinking. Like they feeling judged, or as if I'm, like when I tell them I don't drink, that they automatically assume that I don't want them to drink either. And that's not the case. So I just usually just reassure the girl I'm with, like, hey, if you drink, have a good time. Don't not have a good time at my expense. It's just better for me if I don't, or I'm just not going to drink. You go ahead. And I'll leave it at that. If you over explain, then they get nervous. If you just play like it's no big deal, brush it off as you do your thing, I'm going to do mine. Plus, once they have a couple in them, they loosen up. Then they see you have no problem. You're not tense. You're not boring. You're not stuttering. You're not, judging them very dry. Like, I can be just as loose sober as I am drinking. Well, maybe a little looser drinking, but a little wilder. But it has no effect on me whatsoever. The effect it has is reassuring the other person that it's not a big deal to me.
Okay, very cool, very cool. And then, Mark, how about yourself on that?
Well, I would reiterate what Joe just said there about the people being uncomfortable when you're not drinking. This last girl I dated, she partied, and I went out with her for about a year, but it didn't mix too well with me. But I know it was hard for her because if she wanted to drink, but I didn't care. It didn't make any difference to me. I'd say my biggest struggle since I've sobered up was not so much in the dating, but in the LTRs. Before I sobered up, before I was 30, I was partying until I was about 30, and I quit. I had no problems with women as far as managing the respect, different things like that. But when I quit drinking, I tried, how would I say? I actually threw the baby out with the bathwater, if you know that. Everything I did before I thought was bad because I didn't treat girls very well. It's not that I was abusive, but I just didn't treat them well. But then they loved me. I mean, I had a wife, I had 2 steady girlfriends. They all knew I had this going on, but they just, I didn't rub it in their face. So when I sobered up, I completely threw all that out. Of course, I didn't want to lie anymore, but I guess I have to say I kind of turned into a nice guy to a certain degree. I didn't put up with much crap, but I, when the women when the LTRs would treat me really well, I would want to do something back for them. And I had a tendency, what is the old 2/3 rule? I think it is. Well, I was like doing 2/3 for them instead of letting them do 2/3. And even though I would start getting the disrespect, and I would tell them, look, if you continue this, I'm not going to be here. Well, they don't listen to what you say, even though I meant it, and I eventually end up leaving, and they regretted it and wish they had me back. It just, I have a hard time practicing the principles of the programs, so to speak, when it comes to women. And my rule of thumb is this: the golden rule is treat others the way you want to be treated. But with women, I treat them the way they want to be treated, because a woman does not want to be treated like like I want to be treated. And I can't treat a woman the same way I can treat my male friends. My male friends, if I do things for them, they appreciate it and they actually respect me more. But when you do that, at least my experience, when I do that for women in relationships and dating, they see it as a weakness, and they kind of disrespect you. Or at least
Don't you find that across the board, like with a lot of guys you speak to, like even friends and through the coaching and all? That's a common thread that I see through guys, that they assume that men and women have the same give take reward system and reward responses.
yeah,
And
but they
the two,
don't.
they do
Yeah.
not. They do
Yeah,
not.
exactly. And it just, so I really struggle with that for a long time. And even now, I know what to do, and I can do it, but it's very difficult because now I never knew what a narcissist was till about 3 or 4 years ago when I was looking up to see if one of my girlfriends or ex-wives were that. But I realized how many narcissistic qualities I had when I drank. And I didn't drink every day. Sometimes I went a couple of years without drinking, or I drank every weekend, whatever. But just that attitude of, hey, there's the door. You don't like it? See you later. Now, I might not have wanted them to leave, but that was my attitude, and everything else was more important than my woman. But when I sobered up, I put too much importance on that woman, and I think we all know where that ends up. And even though I told him, I said, "Hey, look, I'm not gonna. If you keep continue this, I'm not gonna be around here." And eventually, I had to leave them because the disrespect. I had a hard time being, well, for lack of a better way, the jerk I was when I was drinking. That
Let me
they
ask you this.
were.
I got a question. So do you find, I've found since I've been in recovery, that 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 jerk has to be a little more intentional. Like I by nature want to be a kind and giving person. Like that's my nature. That's my default. Is like, okay, I really like the way we're getting along. You're doing all the right things. I want to reward you. And not paying attention, I will slip into the same thing you said, the 2/3, the opposite way. Like I'll be giving more and more just because I'm like, hey, I'm happy. You're doing the right things. Things are going well. You're not breaking my balls. I'm not stressing. We haven't argued. There's a lot of things that you keep up with consistently. I want to reward you. And that's, and then, well, because, think about the tenets and the principles of recovery, about being selfless and giving, kind, loving, tolerant, and patient with others. And
Yeah, I find exactly, and that just does not, or for me anyway, personally, it does not work well with the women I've dated. And now some people might say, well, you probably go out with, they're damaged goods, they're this and that. I went out with women from good families, bad families, terrible families, pretty good families. It doesn't matter. They respond better to the way I was before I was 30 and I quit, But I'm not saying I have to be that way now, that the bad boy that I was, but there's certain characteristics of that bad boy that really work well with women, that you can still implement now, that you may. It's just like you said, it's really hard sometimes to, I mean, for lack of a better word, women are a lot like children. I've raised like 7 or 8 kids. I got 6 here now. I've raised by myself for the last 12 years. And women are a lot like children. If you give them an inch, they'll take a mile. And they're just not the same. They don't respond the same way as men respond to certain things. So that's been my biggest struggle, is being more, I guess I would say, stern with women. I'm just too generous, too giving. Actually, I've been married in sobriety more than once, And my last ex-wife told me, said, "You're just too good to us." That was after we split up, and I
Wow.
had another one. I had another one I was married to, and she told me before she left, and we were splitting up, or maybe it's one of the times when she came back. She says to visit, she says, "You're a great husband and a great father, but I just can't live this kind of life." And she went off with the guy who just got out of jail with the ankle bracelet, the meth dealer. So it's like, there you go. Now they all wanted to come back after we divorced, but after that, I mean, I had sex with them afterwards, but I would never let them come back again after they cheated on me. And so, yeah, it's a strange thing. A woman will tell you, as you guys know, "I want a good, steady, dependable, honest, hardworking guy." They get bored with that. At least in our society today, where a woman doesn't need a man directly to survive. Maybe back in the old days, when they needed a man directly. Otherwise, they were like, "What am I going to do? I don't have anybody to help me out with the kids and this or that." So things are different now.
No, my experience, hands on, and with guys like yourself and every other guy who I know who is successful, who's made this transformation, the people I've met along the last 6 years since I made that change. And all the guys that I keep in touch with that are now in LTRs are, I heard this saying a long time ago, you got to hate them just a little bit. So you got to treat it as such. There's no way you can ever let your guard down and be like you'd be with one of your good close friends. My close friend one time, this was a couple of years back. I lived in the condo right below this one a couple of years back, and I was moving out, kind of going through it a little bit, and this is when I drank. And he brought me a bottle of bourbon, and he's like, "Yeah, I was just thinking about you. How's everything?" Came over, cracked it. We had a couple of drinks. He's like, "Yeah, I got that for you. I thought about you. Just hope everything's going okay." And and I thought that was great. I thought that was an honorable thing. So one day he called me, needed help with something. I went and worked for him. He's a veteran from the Iraq War, and he had this big job to move. He opened a moving company when he came back. It's a big old jacked up dude. And I went and worked with him for a day. So at the end of the day, I thought about him in his position when he was in a jam and what he did for me when I was in a jam. And I rewarded that. And that's our relationship still. We're not as close as we used to be, but we still keep in touch. And it's all praise. It's all encouragement, and that's just the way we exist. There's a degree of honor and respect and integrity that as men, it actually builds us up from other men and from our ladies. Women don't operate like that. Women will constantly test your backbone, your position, your leadership. And I'm not saying if you got a woman who's testing you with bullshit every day, that's not testing you. That's being blatantly disrespectful. But there should be an expectation of a little bit of push, a little bit of poking to see if you're still in there. Because I can't be it's just not good for me to be the semi-aggressive, my way or the highway prick all the time. It's not good for my psyche. It's not good for my well-being. It's not good for my mindset. And I'm not gonna. Can I? Absolutely. But even that gets old. But it's their job. It's their position in your life to, kind of poke around a little bit and make sure you're paying attention. Make sure you still got your edge. I mean, that's part of a woman's purpose in a man's life is not only to encourage and support and be more joyful than a pain in the ass, but to get you going now and then. Because, through life, through complacency and routine, we can let our guards down a little bit. We kind of can let shit slip a little bit, little things that made us so attractive in the beginning, the same attractive qualities that, largely stick out in the beginning that attract women to you. You're getting comfortable in an LTR, over time, you get really comfortable. You kind of let your guard down. You get complacent. You get too nice. You get too giving. And that's a thing. That's real. And what that does is slowly she'll stop trusting you, in a sense. She won't trust in your ability to be a leader and take up for yourself and, be assertive. They love that shit. They love to know you still got it. It happens I shouldn't say all the time, but it is part of a cycle of a relationship where attraction ebbs and flows. That's normal. And you got to be able to ride that tide, and you got to have the acuity to at least realize when she's going to tell you when you're slipping a little bit, and it's going to show up in her behavior. And it's your job to have the acuity to notice the change, notice the subtle difference, the subtle shifts, and be able to correct without overcorrecting, without going into, macho tough guy, bitch, my way to highway guy, but subtly like, hey, you're getting out of fucking line a little bit. Get back in here. Get back in this little place I got for you here. Stay there. But that's your job.
These are such truth bombs, guys. And like, I hear this and like, I get mixed emotions of depression and relief because I know this is the truth, what you guys are talking about. I'm like you, Mark. I got into sobriety so I could be the nice guy and have permission to do so. And as I've dated, I've realized, dude, like I have to learn the exact opposite. Like I have to learn how to be kind of a dick, like intentionally, as I just can be too nice, and I love it. I'm just like you, Joe. Like I'd rather be for a long time. I was like, I kind of wish I was like no homo, that I was gay, because I'm like, dude, if I could just like be with the homies as a relationship, how I treat the homies, that'd be great. But I knew the way I treated the homies did not work well with women, and in fact, it did the exact opposite.
It's a fantasy.
It's a fantasy, man. And gosh, so many guys get taught that that's how it's supposed to be, and
you should be relieved. That's a big relief knowing that way ahead of time.
Let me throw this out there to you guys. What you think about this? I hear these guys talking, and maybe it's excuse me, maybe it's possible, but it's not possible for me. They say, "Oh, my girl's my best friend." What I throw up to that is this. Okay, my best friend, I can come home and maybe go out. He comes by and we talk. I said, "Man, I seen this girl today and she was so fine." I said, and I was talking to her, and man, I had to get away from her because I was so tempted. And she was coming on to me, and man, it was tough. But I'm married. I want to be faithful, and I can tell him that. What do you think's going to happen if I tell my wife that, or my girlfriend? She is going to become insecure. So I could tell my best friend that, and other things. Let's say I lost my job. I was self-employed, but if I was working 20 years, okay, I call my best friend, man, I'm upset. I don't know what I'm going to do, man. I'm afraid I'm going to lose my house. I can't come home and lay that off on my wife and kids.
No.
And act afraid. I got to come home and say, hey, I lost my job. Don't worry. I got it under control. But these people now are talking about, well, you need to be, vulnerable. You need to open up. What do you think's going to happen? You start laying that stuff on my best friend or my mentor. I can tell them, and I need to share that with him. And if I'm going to cry about it, I need to cry in front of him, not in front of my wife or my kids. They look to me for strength.
You can be her best friend. She can't be your best friend. That's a myth. That's bullshit. I don't want to be best friends with my girl. And, for a lot of the reasons you said, and then some. That's not, you're my lover, you're my wife, or my romantic interest first. First and foremost, you're my lover. That's where it has to, that's got to be the foundation of our understanding. We like each other, but we like to have sex. All right. Compatibility. The only thing I believe that needs to be like the core values and principles, if you're interested in a long-term relationship, parenting, be in the same ballpark, financially, minded like that, and lifestyle. You got to have some similarities in lifestyle. And I'm talking about how you take care of yourself, nutrition, you keep a clean house. Even that's somewhat negotiable, because typically a girl will start leaning your way. No, not typically, every time. If she starts falling for you harder, she's going to adopt your habits and your patterns. So we don't have to have all this, quote, compatibility shit. And no, Mark, you're absolutely right. Being vulnerable is not, you don't do that with your lady. That's not what she's there for. That's where you have your boys. That's where you have a little bit of a tribe or a mentor. I have mentors for everything. And if I got a grievance about a job that I'm doing, I don't tell her anything. If she asks, how was your day? It was good. It's productive. I'm not lying. It was very productive. It might have been shit, and I might have lost my ass on a job, but I'm not going to tell her that. She's not going to be any wiser about if I got something really eating away at me. Some things are going to be obvious. if I'm super stressed and she knows it, but then I don't get into the details and tell her how it's defeating me. I just say, yeah, I got a lot on my plate right now. Don't pay any mind. It'll get better. I always land on my feet. You know, say some shit like that and move on, change the subject, ask her about something, let her talk. But vulnerability is a myth. Best friends with your girl, that's a myth. It's not practical. It never works. Just, and for the real simple things, like you said, you're going to tell her, man, I was in a restaurant and this waitress kept rubbing her titties on my shoulder. And man, she was smoking ass hot, young, hot, tight. Yeah, you can't, what? No, you're not going to say that. And you're certainly not going to come home and whine to her about, you know, a difficulty in life, whether it be business or social, that you're having, that you need some feedback on. Like, she's no use there. And I make that clear in the beginning with my girl now. I told her, you'll never know what I have, what's eating me up. If something's eating me up inside, you'll never know about that. And that's just the way it's going to be. That's not what you're here for. You're not built to take on my burden and my stress, just like you wouldn't tell your kids. You don't tell your woman. It goes, God, husband, wife belongs to the husband, and the kids belong to the wife. And you take care of everything under the umbrella with God. And that's it. They don't do. What did they say about the chain of command? Shit rolls downhill. Complaints roll uphill. You don't complain down. So, absolutely. No best friend, no BFFs with the girl. Hey, you're muted.
I'm muted. So the idea that, hey, we're going to be a partnership, that's kind of the word that's getting thrown around. Like men, find yourself a partner and that you can ride or die with. It's a great idea, I think. Guys get excited.
Well, you got to ask somebody to define that, because words nowadays mean, they have some subtle differences in meaning. I mean, no, not a partner. If anything, is a co-captain, captain and co-captain, and that's okay. Do you think she wants to be the one making hard decisions alongside of you, making difficult decisions?
Well, they might say so in this day and age because of the whole, boss girl thing. But
no matter what they say, do you really think they want that? And I can tell you from years of experience, no, they do not. They don't even want to know. They say they want to know. They don't want to know. Tell you what, you want to go see how well that shit works out? Go think of something that makes you sad and go lay your head in her lap and cry. Tell her you need to take a good cry. Tell me how that works out. Mark's laughing because he knows exactly what I'm talking about. Like, what is going to happen that night? You think you're getting laid and you think you're getting a little head before sex? No.
They'll tolerate that once maybe, but after that they don't want to. I got a 17-year-old daughter. You know how many guys she didn't really date. I mean, she goes out occasionally, but they talk and they call that dating now. But anyway, but they come over here and they gotta meet me and I gotta shake their hands or whatever. And it doesn't take maybe about a month of them talking. They may date once or twice. They see each other in school or whatever. And they're already crying and asking her where they're at and what's going on. I mean, she gets what she calls the ick feeling. I mean, I feel bad for her because she can't hardly find a guy that, because like I am, or like all her brothers, they're pretty, we're pretty masculine here. And we, but it's,
Mark, help these young men out.
I try to talk to them. It's crazy. I mean, my sons help out other guys too, but it's just amazing. I feel sorry for them. It's like, man, you guys, don't do that. It's just, they act like women is what they act like, but that's what they're told through the social media. Well, tell her how you feel, tell her how much she means to you. Put her at number one. And you know what happens when you put a girl at number one? The way when I was before I sobered up, it was me first. I didn't really have a relationship with God. I believed in God. Probably played God most of the time. And then there was my boxing, then my work, my friends, and then my wife. Okay, or my girlfriends, whatever it happened to be. And that worked out really well. But what I've realized in sobriety has to be God, my sobriety first, my vision second, and then my girlfriend or wife after that. She's got to be down that line. The Romans they classified their woman or their wife just a little bit above a slave. Now that sounds crude, but there's some wisdom in that because a woman does not want to be on a pedestal. She does not, regardless of what she says, she does not want to be up there. She doesn't want you
Not by
trying
you.
to make her happy, worshiping her, and putting her first in your. Now they'll tell you, "I want you to put me first in your life," but that don't let you do that and see what happens.
Yeah, women by default just wreck shit. It's uh, not intentionally, but they're led by their emotions. Women are drug around through life by their emotions every second of every day. And thank God I don't have to live like that. Now, at one point when things were out of whack in my younger years, I was raised by a single mother with an older sister in the house. And, my mom was very mentally unstable, always drama, always screaming and yelling. And I could never, so I grew up in that. That was my response to things. I would overreact like a woman. I didn't know. I mean, I thought that's the way in my house, you fucking screamed it out. When something bothered you, you held it in until you couldn't take it anymore, then you lash out at everybody. And I just thought that was the way you operated. And, so going into my 20s, I noticed these bouts of depression and this uncertainty and things were off. It was palpable that I'm not doing something right. Fortunately, I had, a strong male figure in my life with my grandfather. From the time I was about 16 or 17, we really started getting into the nitty gritty about life to plant some seeds for later on. And I think I even told Joel about this. And then another thing was entering construction, where you work with some, hard legs, fucking, drug addicts, ex-convicts, just some hard ass masculine dudes. And it's iron workers. And that kind of snapped me out of it a little bit. You start pulling that shit, people are looking at you like you fucking nuts. Or they tell you, what the fuck, you screaming like a woman? Shut up. Shut that shit up. And so, and I'll tell you, what really woke me up out of it, I mean, snapped me out of a daze, was 6 years ago when I first read that book, Rational Male. I was like, God damn, I knew something was off. I knew I shouldn't have been doing that. I knew they did, and all these truths just like boom, 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 slapping me in the face. I was in shock by the time I finished that book. I walked around in a daze for months about all the realizations and truths that I'd been told otherwise. And, that book is all about alluding to the things that we're talking about here tonight, is about what women really want, what women say they want, and what they really want. Right. And yeah, they say that stuff from a place of comfort. And guys think comfort does not equal attraction. Comfort does not equal polarity. Polarity must exist. There must be a polar opposite of feminine in order to keep their attention and attract and lead. What?
They're always saying make girls comfortable. Like, to get to her heart, you make her comfortable. That's literally the line that's going around the internet.
That's so she doesn't feel like you're gonna attack her or rape her or something. Yeah, you don't want to be uncomfortable, but you don't want them to be so you want to offer comfort in a sense that she feels safe and protected. That's a kind of comfort. Okay. Not comfortable that she could just walk all over you and that you're a soft fucking bitch and she could do whatever she wants and get away with it. That's not what they mean. And go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, you're talking about the men you grew up with. I grew up with, my father was a World War II veteran. My grandfather was a World War II veteran, and I grew up in the country around construction guys, and they all drank. And back when I was a kid, they'd all go behind the liquor store, 10, 15 of them, and talk as men back there. And that's because I was a kid. I grew up around that. And then I got into construction when I was 15. So I grew up around a lot. You go whining and carrying on too much around those guys, they'd call you out. You just didn't. We used to use the term pussy whipped when a guy started getting whipped with us. We'd call them guys out. And the young kids don't have that. It's just like in sobriety, you have a fellowship of people who help you. I grew up with a fellowship of men who talked like men all the time. And like you say, in the construction, we know how it is. That's a rough crew there. I'm still in construction today. Yeah. But unfortunately, the young men don't have that. Most of them are sitting at home, and they just don't know what to do. They don't have the fellowship of men. Like even when I was 16 and 17, we get off work and stand around the street corner, a bunch of us, and drank and talk and carry men, young men, some older guys. And that really helps a man actually learn how to be a man. If you want to be a man, you got to be around men. They don't necessarily have to drink, but that's what I grew up around. But they were men talking about manly things and doing manly things.
Well, look at these boys nowadays. Just they're being indoctrinated from birth, like even in the homes now, because they got so many men who've been brainwashed and fell for that dumb shit that they're growing up and their father figure, their dad's a fucking simp punk who doesn't stand up for himself, who cowers to the wife. And you look at, I'll give you one small example, but it's a representation of society. And this started, I guess, in the 90s and 2000s. Like Everybody Loves Raymond. The mom was the strong, intelligent one who solved the problems. And, you know, Ray Romano was the fucking klutz stumbling around life, you know, making mistakes and begging the wife for sex and getting manipulated by the kids and getting corrected by the wife, you know, putting back in line like a good boy. And you look at it, it's on TV, it's on music, it's in commercials. Like I did a video about this commercial I saw. It was an Amazon commercial, and this guy, I guess they're new parents, and the dad had the little baby carrier thing on, and he's carrying around and washing bottles and changing diapers, and you know the wife's sitting back on the sofa watching TV, like looking up and giving him the nod of approval, like, oh yeah, he's really coming along. And at the end of the commercial, with this led up to it, stepped up to the guy starts getting the swing of things, and he's in a groove. So he's got the ordering stuff from Amazon to make his life more efficient. And, you know, he's got the diaper thing down pat. He's got the dishwashing and the cooking down pat. And she comes walking into the kitchen and she like gives him this look, and he like raises his eyebrows and looks at the camera. And he's like, yeah, like that's what people see nowadays. That's what people really think that is. I mean, I don't know, I get aggravated talking about this shit because of how stupid it is, and nobody sees the potential for destruction in that. But here's the upside. The plus side is all people that are going back to more traditional. I'm not talking trad con talk, but they have people, even the women who have gone through this third wave of feminism, and now in their late 30s, early 40s, late 40s, like, damn, they lied. I am unhappy. I'm single. I have a career, but nobody wants me anymore. I can't have kids. This isn't working out. They lied to me. Like, none of this is true. I was so much happier when, you know, I wanted to follow when I was a little girl and I played house and I had a baby doll and I took care of the baby, and you know, I decorated my room. I did all that. I was looking forward to having a house, but they told me to get a career and be a boss bitch. And, you know, they're starting to see, and at least they're coming out and saying to these young ladies, like, look, don't fall for that. There's a reason you have a biological drive to have kids. And there's a reason why you're attracted. You know, there's an animal attraction to these strong masculine men who stand up for themselves and who work out. And like, chicks don't like dad bods. God, that's the biggest lie out in the media. They don't like dad bods. They don't like men who constantly give in and cower and do everything, and that dries them up. They lose attraction and respect. If you lose respect, attraction's long gone. A woman can never love you if she doesn't respect you. But it's your job to not earn the respect, but to garner the respect through your actions consistently. And it's your job to hold that position and demand respect. And then when a boundary's crossed, you enforce that boundary with a consequence every time. And sometimes it gets to be a tedious thing, having to correct every little bitty thing. But if you want to keep a relationship that's sane, functional, and healthy in the long term, that's what you signed up for when you were born with a set of nuts. That's in the agreement. It's part of being a man. Leading kids, just like women and men love our kids differently. The way I showed my son love was not letting him be lazy. waking him up when it's time to take the trash out, making him do his homework, punishing him when he did something wrong, beating his ass if he came home with an after-school detention. That's the way a dad shows love. And it's not the way a woman shows love to their kids. You know, they're all about nurturing and letting them get away with what they want.
Yeah.
And that's healthy. They need that balance.
Yeah, I don't see a woman raising boys, because I've raised these boys, like I said, for the last 12 years by myself. They get to a certain age, they're going to test you, and they have three of them. They'll get up. I've seen, and they tell me about some of these boys being raised up by their mothers, and those boys talk to their mothers just like they cuss them. They talk to them. I can't believe the way they talk. Well, I guess there's no man around, see, so they talk to him like that. And these boys, they both, I had to physically, how do I say it? Take care of the situation, and we have more respect for each other now. I didn't beat them up or anything like that, but they'll get up,
snatch them up.
Yeah, they get up in your face. That's what boys do, and they want to know, do you love me enough to stop me from screwing my life up? I had the cops call me one night, and one of my boys was out at past curfew. Went down and picked him up. They told me to take him home and whip his butt. Well, I obey the law, so but I only had to do it once. But yeah, these things, yeah, men and women love their kids differently. But in the best case scenario is not for me to be by myself, or a woman, is for a man and woman to be together and work together, because I can't nurture children. I mean, I'm not against women. I can't nurture kids. They come up here and they're crying because their brother and they got into it or something. I'm like, well, what'd you do? What was your part in it? A woman's going to pick them. A woman's going to pick them. It's okay, honey. I love you. But I can do that once in a while, but it's just not me. It's hard for me to do. I'm like, well, you did something. No, I didn't do anything, but you did something. So, yeah, it takes both. I can't tell you that I've raised these kids as well as I could have had I had a wife here and we worked together. I'm sure it would have been better, but I did the best I could. But how many women will tell you, oh, I can raise them just fine without a man. I don't need no man. But that's not true. We need each other. And the sooner we figure this out, the better off we're going to be. And then you were talking about when a man makes a decision, the woman doesn't want to. And that's something, if we go back to the steps of these 12-step programs, you have the amend step or admitting when we're wrong. Now, if you got to go back and admit you're wrong, there's nothing wrong with that. But, a man needs to say, hey, I made a mistake. But that's the end of it. There's no, oh, I'm sorry, or beating yourself up, or her bringing it up 2-3 days or a month or 6 months down the road. If you need to be able to admit that you're wrong, but that's all there is. I take the responsibility. I'll make a decision because they don't want to. But when I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I made a mistake. At least I made it because you didn't want to make it. So you don't have to take a beating. And you talked also about how some of these men are, I don't know how many clients' homes I go into and they say, I better go ask the boss. I hear it all the time. That's what the man says. I better go ask the boss. So we know who the boss is. But don't you think that the laws have contributed to that too? Because I tell you what, a man's got a lot to lose. And if he's been married a long time and got some kids, he can't hardly defy her if she's not cooperating, because she'll take him to the cleaners in court. I would never want to be in that position. I've lost everything a couple times during marriages because I won't tolerate that crap. And then that's what happens. You got to be willing to walk away from everything. And I have more than once. Hopefully I learned my lesson from it. But and I was in the program during those too. And I practiced the principles of the program. And I can't say the word on YouTube, but I got taken. I want to use the word grape in court because I was honest. I did what I was supposed to do. I worked the principles, and man, they were willing to do what they had to do, which was be dishonest. I got taken to the cleaners, man. So I see why these guys are saying, I better go ask the boss, but I can't do that.
That will never happen. I've totally cut off a friendship with a guy over this. I finally had some free time. This was a couple of years back, and the guy's wife didn't like me already because, I was promoting an energy drink at the time, this stuff called Celevate. There was a local guy who I knew that I grew up with, formulated this drink. He was really trying to launch it. He had a contract with Budweiser and a few other big name stores here in the area. And he knows I went to the gym, I'm into jiu-jitsu, and he's like, hey, can you take pictures at jiu-jitsu with it? Can you take pictures at the gym? I'd go do these little tabletop promotions and stores and events and bodybuilding shows. And Well, this dude's like a specimen, about 6'2", 240, just lean, 10-12% body fat, just an ox. Big, intimidating looking dude. He's got a beard, bald head, shoulders barely fit through a door. This dude was just. Anyway, well, he was coming out of the gym one day and I was just going in. And he just finished working out. He had on a tank top. So he had a pump going. I'm like, dude, I grabbed one of the drinks out of my bag. I handed it to him. I said, pretend like you're drinking it, with the label sticking out. So I took a couple of pictures of him and she comes walking up from behind. And I'm like, all right, thank you. I fist bump him. I said, you could keep the drink. I go to my workout. And I see him like, and he like puts his hands up. And he's like, man, like he started pouting like a little kid. Well, come to find out, she thought I was taking pictures of him to send to other women or some shit like that. I said, what? I said, why would you even entertain that? Like, why would you even let that get to a point where she could even say something like that? Couldn't understand it. About a week or two later, my thing is I like to go to lunch with my friends, people I know, acquaintances and friends. That's where we get talking done. We get to catch up, and I love to eat. So they have this place that makes a really good steak, not too far from here. I'm like, you know what? I hadn't talked to David in a minute. So I called him. I shouldn't have said his name. So let me call him. So I'm like, what's up? It's like, oh, nothing. We're just sitting around. I'm like, cool. So let's go grab some lunch. My treat. I'm going to 527, my treat. Oh, okay, cool. And he says, hold on. Let me ask the boss. Just like that. And he says, hey, wife, Joe's asking me if we go out, do you mind if I go to eat lunch with Joe? He's like, uh-huh. I don't know. Hold on. And he's like, where are we going? I said, Gallagher's 527. And he's like, yeah, Gallagher's. No, not the restaurant, the 527, the bistro. And he's like giving this long explanation, asking permission. And this is a grown dude with kids. I'm like, dude, what? And he's like, hold on, let me call you right back. So he calls back 2-3 minutes. And he's like, yeah, I can go. She's going to drop me off. I'm like, I'll just come get you. And he's like, no, she wants to drop me off. Like, I tell you what, never mind. Just forget it. He's like, no, I don't mind. I just wanted to. I'm like, dude, you need to ask permission to go to lunch with a friend. I said, that's not a good look, dude. I said, I can't associate with that. I'm sorry. No, I wish you the best, but I can't do that. I said, I don't agree with that at all. He's like, well, dude, it's my wife. I'm like, yeah, exactly. That's your wife, not your keeper, not your parent. I'm like, no, sorry, dude. Just ain't going to happen. And I immediately lost respect for the guy, and we really haven't talked since.
Wow, just like that. That's crazy, man. And it's so celebrated.
You cannot trust a man who is under the control of a woman, or guys, any men in your life who will cower to women. They can't be trusted in any other area in life, because that's a weakness. They'll always break there. That means they'll sell you down a river to make you look bad for a woman. They'll go behind your back if you're with somebody and tell them things like those kind of men do that. You can't. That's a dangerous place. Those guys will ruin your life just like a crazy woman would. I promise you, they can't be trusted in any area: business, social, recreation. Like if you're working out with them, like I have such a disdain, and it's a bit of a pity and sympathy for these guys, but I can't do it. I don't invite people like that into my life.
Mark, any thoughts on that?
Well, I was just trying to think, why has it gotten that way? I think, what's the old saying? Hard times make strong men make good times make soft men. And I think about that. I make the joke. Of course, I don't want a war because I have 5 sons that are about age to go. Yeah, right. But we need a war. We don't have all these people. They got too much time. They have no challenges. We as men need challenges. And there's a very small percentage of men, and I would say probably us here, but actually go out and look for challenges and create challenges. So the rest of these people, the masses, they need challenges thrown upon them, or they're looking for something to fight about, like the pronouns. I'll just throw that one out there. I won't say too much about that. You got to be careful. Some of those things they're looking for something, and they want to be different. They want to be a special snowflake instead of going out there and working their butt off or being a boxing or playing football or lifting weights or whatever. They want to just say they're this or say they're that, and then the opposition comes because it's not, I won't say normal, it's different, I'll say it that way, so people don't like it. So then they have a challenge. I mean, but they're creating challenges or creating mountains out of molehills. I really don't know how to say it for lack of a better word, but um, we need challenges, we need adversity, we need risk to grow. I don't know about you guys, but I've grown more when I went through extremely difficult times. I got a situation now where I'm working on this house. I got another home, and it's just like I look at it and I'm thinking, oh God, this is overwhelming. I'm never going to get it done. But I make myself just work. But I know eventually, because persistence is omnipotent. So eventually, if I keep going just like everything else in my life, the hard times, I'll get to the end of that. But that's a challenge I put myself up to. A challenge most people wouldn't take because it's just so much of doing this old 1880 home. But I love doing that. But sometimes it's like, but we don't have that. We don't. Kids don't climb trees. They don't. They got to have their helmet on. They got to have their shin guards on. They got, and they're soft because they don't have any. They don't get hurt. They don't get. They need to rest.
There used to be rites of passage into manhood, and that is all but dissolved. Like you said earlier about, tell her how you feel, be vulnerable. They turn in men into women. They essentially are. This is why you see men shooting up schools, and men were not built to process and be led by our emotions. This is where men get confused, depressed, anxious. When we don't process that shit. What do we respond to? The very thing that you said. We respond to challenge, adversity, purpose. That's what drives a man. That's what builds a man. That's where a man gets confidence from. We don't get confidence from men whistling at us and taking pictures of our butts. And we don't gain confidence from that, from being lied to by our girlfriends. Oh, girl, you're so pretty. No, we build confidence through struggle, through adversity, through overcoming, solving problems, and making shit happen. That's where we build confidence, purpose, self-respect, self-love comes in those moments. And they're lying to men and telling them it's easy. You don't have to do that to be worthy. And that's a lie. That's just a way to keep your guard down. No, you don't need, like, have you seen this campaign of men who have come out against guys who work out and go to the gym, and they say, and that's now a radical right-wing idea. And so there used to be, back in the day, it was rites of passage into manhood. And they still have some, remote tribes that practice these things. But this was a normal thing. Like, you had to go out there and prove yourself a man. You had to go work for that. There were certain rituals. There were certain, like when you got to a certain age and you lived in a rural community in the early 1900s, late 1800s, you had to start going out there with the dad and doing the fucking hard shit on the farm. You had to start going out there learning how to hunt and fish. Like this thing, like within tribes. Like once you became, look at the Spartans. I know that's a bit of an extreme because we're never going to have Spartans again. But like those people were put in warrior gear by the time they 4 or 5 years old. You were trained to be a fucking animal machine killer to defend the tribe. And that's where you derived your purpose and you earned that manhood. And that's
a lot of them died too. Those kids got killed.
Well, yeah, they would, because that was it. They were weeded out of the gene pool. Now look at these pathetic pieces of shit we got walking around. Like I'm telling you,
man. I grew up on like video games and stuff, so I totally relate to being coddled and man, it's been a hell of a struggle. And I think recovery was a great first challenge in learning how to say I'm going to do something, get through the steps, and then find the miracle at the end. So it's really cool that this is all coming back to recovery. And I did a step 6, 2 of them this week. in different programs. And the one yesterday, I asked my sponsor, I'm like, how many people actually like that you sponsor get through? And she's like, not many, because they just give up. And it is kind of like a testament. She's like, and this is like for the program I'm doing, it's for sex and love addicts. So that's why I am working with a woman on this one. And she's like, I'm just so impressed that you like do it. And I'm like, why? Like, what's the other option? Like, not to do it? And it was like, yeah, it just doesn't make sense just not to do the work that is laid out in front. And we were talking too, is that one of the things that I'm glad we're talking about this is because in in these steps and in the recovery circles, they still talk about things as like we're equal, like especially in the recovery relationship stuff. I don't know, Mark, if you've experienced this, that it's like, okay, when you're with your partner, this is how you treat them. You ask permission to ask questions. If you have a disagreement, you ask permission to talk. And that's like what's going through the actual literature too. So it's kind of like a red flag to me in that sense as well.
That doesn't work in relationships sometimes. That's why I say I've never been able to integrate the program, the 12-step program, into my day. I mean, there are certain principles you can use, but it just doesn't work well to, because like Joe and I talked about, he mentioned too, you can be too nice. They do not want you to be nice. Now, I don't want you to be a raving jerk, but it just, like I said, you got to treat them the way they want to be treated, and they do not want to be treated that way. I think sometimes, just my opinion, if you take thousands of years of evolution and these women, it wasn't until what, the last, and I'm not against women, I love women. It wasn't until the last, what, 100 years, 150 years that women actually started to have a say in anything. So they were the men that they would be with that could protect them and provide and keep them safe were the ones that were more narcissistic. They were out for themselves. They knew how to protect themselves. They would kill if they had to. So do you think if they were attracted to that type of man for so many years, they're going to turn on and be attracted to a modern day man that's going to be nice and treat them wonderful and give them everything they want and change the baby and stay home and let her go out and work? I just don't think that makes any logical sense whatsoever. And we see what's happening when a person tries to do that. It just does not work. At least as far as I can. It's never worked for me, and I don't know anybody that it has worked for.
No, she don't even know why.
Unless the man is really in his feminine and and that's the oddity, the rarity. If a man can stay there, I can't do that. I can't play that part.
No. And you know, the thing is, because it sounds good on paper, some of these ideas, and women can't even figure out what it is, how they lost attraction. They don't even know. They just know they have that, like your daughter said, the ick factor. It's just gone. You just don't get her wet anymore. She doesn't really see you that way anymore. You're doing all this shit thinking, because like we were talking about the reciprocal relationship of men, when somebody does something nice for me, I'm appreciative and I respect them more for that, for thinking about me. And it's a good feeling. That's not how it works with the opposite sex. That's not what she wants from you, is to constantly praise her. And I'm not saying you call her a fat whore and stuff all the time, but they don't need constant praise. They don't want flowers once a week. I did that in my marriage, trying to save it, thinking if I sent the flowers every Friday, we can have this special tradition where in my mind, I'm going to send her flowers every Friday. And it's going to be this one arrangement that I pick out. And it's going to have a little note inside that tells her how much I appreciate the stuff she does around the house. You know, all the things she's done over the years. She's a good mother. And she keeps the house well. And I'm going to do that every Friday until, you know, I kind of dig myself out of the hole. You know, I was in a hole, so I thought. And boy, is she going to fucking want to fuck me when she gets home. And this is going to be the life. This is going to set off a whole new set of circumstances in my marriage. And she's going to be appreciative. And she's going to think I'm the greatest thing to walk the earth since JC. And it didn't go like that at all. Not even close. Matter of fact, I started noticing the more I did it, the less cooperation and attention and everything that I was shooting for even happened. It got further and further away. But, back then we didn't have guys like this on a panel saying just fucking God, purpose, God, mission, you, her. I didn't have anybody to tell me that. And I'm telling you, I've done it both ways. And this is why I even started this whole movement on YouTube. My brand is to tell people I've done it both ways. I did the flowers every Friday and the chores around the house, so she could come home and be in a better mood. It didn't work. It made things exponentially worse. And it made things exponentially more difficult for me because I'm racking my brain. It's like, what the fuck am I doing wrong? Like, I worked 1,200 hours of overtime. Yeah, I work a 6-figure job. She gets everything she wants. She got the house and the zip code to be a part of the social elite. Like, I'm doing all these things and she's still unhappy. And she still complains when I want to fuck. And like, what am I doing wrong? How could I do this any better? And that was my ignorance, trying to treat her like a guy, a grateful, a healthy man anyway. And
I've been there. I've done the same thing. She wants you, and I've learned to heart. Done the same things you've done. She wants you on your mission. The more you try to make her happy, the more disrespectful she becomes, and the more disdain she has for you. Because I think it's because if she can pull you off your mission, then
you can't be trusted.
You don't have strength. What are you going to do when something comes along? You know what? I've had women ask me when I was in good with them, when I was married, they'd say, well, what are you going to do if something happens to me if I die? I said, well, I'd be fine. I'd make it. And now they act like they're pissed off. But the worst thing you can say is, I don't know, honey. I don't know what I'd do if I lost you. They want to know, even though they're going to get pissed off about it. If you say, I'll be fine, I'll miss you, of course, but I'll go on. They want to know that if they have kids with you and they pass away, that you're going to be able to go on. They don't want to be with some man who's going to fall apart if she leaves or if she gets sick and dies or whatever. They want to know that you're going to carry on without them. That's what they want. But they'll try to pull you off your mission. I got a boy here. He's dating this girl here, and she was trying. What she do? I want you to I wish you'd speak to me a little more and soften up a little more. They want that. They think they do. But when if he gives her that, and he knows this because we talk as men, they work with me. I have a great deal here. We all work together, been working together for years, so we get to talk as men. If you give her what she wants, just like you were trying to give your wife, and I did the same thing, trying to give them what they wanted. The more you do, the more they get disrespectful. And he knows that. He knows if he did that, then she would, and she doesn't even know why. Like, they don't even know why. They think they want that, but if you start to give them that, they're like, I need some space, honey. It's not you, it's me. Because they don't know what it is. Now, they'll laugh at us and badmouth us probably for saying this, but it's the dang truth. It's happened to me, you, and there's countless other men that'll tell you the same story.
And I have years of experience to prove the theory both ways. Both ways. Because, so, like I was saying, I've done it that way and I've done it this way. And my life hasn't been better in the last 6 years. I'm not saying I haven't hit some rough patches. But the overall past 6 years, my life has been the best it's ever been. Obviously, getting sober really put the cherry on top. And that's where I should have started and led with. But I ain't even going to get into all that right now. And my relationships are the best they've ever been. The major fuck up I had in a relationship was when I did what you talked about in the beginning of the show, is when I reverted back to, I want to be nice more and more giving, because it happens. It happens. Look,
damn, that's great.
I'm on a grind. I get comfortable, and I had just kind of fallen into this space and thinking, yep, I got it. I'm going to be the man forever. And that other behavior, until it's practiced long enough, isn't quite the habit yet. And you don't know how much you changed until you've been presented with the exact same situations and you react differently. Some things I did, other things I didn't. Slowly took the relationship apart. But now, as a whole overall, it's a night and day. It's night and day. Because not only do I tell the women, my purpose is first. I don't say my purpose, my business, because that's what I do every day. I wake up in the morning to go run this business. That's first. I'm second. My gym time, my quiet time, my jujitsu, my this, my that. Then you come into the picture. Well, God first. I told you that in the beginning. We'll just say that's implied. It works great. It works great. But I really believe that now. I internalize that and I live that day in and day out. All the situations, it all points to that. There's no compromise. Oh, can't you just miss jiu-jitsu tonight? Nope, not happening. Can't you just skip the gym? Nope, I had a rough week. It's the only time I got to make it. Not happening.
They'll do that too and try to get you. And you think logically as men, we think, okay, well, I really want to go to the gym, but if I stay home with her, she'll appreciate me more. Because a man would. If your friend asked you to do something, he would think, man, I remember when Joe did that for me, and he needs me now. I'm going to be there. But they don't think like that. No. And I'll talk about my last marriage was 12 years. And as far as the program goes in there, what I did was I tried to practice the principles of the programs with her. So a lot of times she would want me to tell her what to do. I'd say, well, no, you need to make your own decisions. In some situation with her, you need to decide so you make your own mistakes and learn from it. Because that's what I would tell somebody. That's what I'm told. And that's what I tell people that I help. But you can't do that, or at least I can't do that with my woman because she doesn't want to make that decision. She doesn't want to be responsible for it. She wants to be. I've had them tell me what to do, but I wouldn't do it because I'm taught in the program not to do that. But that does not work in a intimate relationship. If she says, "Tell me what to do," you need to tell her what to do. You don't need to let her fall on her face and make her own mistake like we have to do, or like I have to do as a man. Because my sponsor might tell me, well, you know what? I'm going to suggest this, but you got to make the decision, and what you're going to do because you're the one that's going to either reap the consequences or the benefits from it. So it just doesn't work to practice those. Of course, you need to be kind, but like you said, Joe, you can be too giving because I'm taught in the program to give away what I want. And it works real well. I do it in business, I do it everywhere, but it does not work with my woman. I cannot be as generous to her as I am with my clients. On my jobs, I always do something extra. Sometimes the clients know it, sometimes they don't. I always go the extra mile. But if you go the extra mile with your woman, like you've experienced, Joe and I have too, it just turns them off.
Look, you display your generosity and care and love in other ways, by your leadership, by your firm stance, with a firm and loving direction, push, nudge to do things. Standing your ground is how you show her appreciation. This is how you communicate to her, look, you can trust me. I will lead this relationship. You have nothing to worry about, and I'll protect us both. I'll keep us safe. You have nothing to worry about when I'm around. That's what they really appreciate and respect and looked up to. Not you caving to their every whim. Because women have whims all fucking day long. They get whims. They have a whim to be angry. They have a whim to be all romantic feeling. They got a whim to be sad. Women cry for no reason. Did you a lot of guys know that? They'll go up in their room and cry just to have a cry. Every girl I've ever dated, you muted.
Yeah, or you guys have probably experienced this. I have with several different women. The last one I dated, you know what she'd tell me when it was her time of the month? She'd be going off on some tangent, and I just listen, and she'd say, "Oh, don't pay any attention to me." She says, "You know how I am on my days." She was Spanish and spoke Spanish, so she would say, "On my days." And they come out and admit, you know how I am, because they become so unstable. But say that to the wrong woman about, it's your time of the month, and it's like, but they do. They become extremely emotional during that time, and it's hard for them to be logical and rational. So they're just very different. We're just different. It doesn't mean they're bad or we're better or they're worse. We're just different.
Okay. Wow, guys, I think that's a great place to put a pause today. This is freaking crazy because I'm more in my beginning stage of the journey, so it's really powerful to hear this. And like you said earlier, Joe, like I'm kind of walking through my haze right now as I'm getting experience. I see all these things and I can't like unsee them anymore. So I'm too far in to go back, and all I can do is keep going forward. So I really appreciate hearing what you guys had to share. And these are the conversations I wish I would have had or gotten to listen to when I was growing up. But I'm super grateful that I get to listen to them now and start to put these things into action right away. So we will definitely have to do some follow up. I think a great talk would be about how not to be a nice guy, because still that doesn't make sense. Like, because like you said, like, okay, we're in recovery. We live a principle of honesty and integrity and being nice and kind and all that. And like you guys are saying, it doesn't work with women. So finding the ways to communicate, I think could offer a lot of clarification. So we're definitely going to have to do another one again. For myself, just to wrap from what I've heard tonight and learned tonight, is to don't treat them like you do with your guy friends. Maybe if you're in recovery, find some coaches or somebody that can teach you how to talk to them, because the recovery lingo just doesn't work. And then put your purpose first. I think that's it's so easy to say when, that super babe isn't there. That was my biggest mistake with the last girl I dated. I slowly just started putting her first, and she saw it. And even my buddy said, he's like, "Oh, obviously I knew what happened. Like she saw that you're in recovery and you do the sobriety stuff, and you're dating her, and she drinks and smokes." It's like, yeah, like just that act in itself was her pulling me off my purpose, and I was like, "Fuck." So that was a huge wake up for me. So, guys, appreciate you guys coming on today and for doing this talk. This was fantastic. We're gonna have a lot of clips that are gonna come from this that are gonna get to kind of highlight some of the highlights from tonight. Joe, Mark, anything you want to share as your last notes and where people can find you on the internet space?
Yeah, look, guys, coming into the lives, we got to remember to support and grow the channel, boost that algorithm, get those likes. It's easy to come in, hit that like, subscribe, and obviously we want you to share the videos of people who you think need them. And leave your comments about what you heard here, or any ideas about what you want to hear about next. And it was a great show. Obviously, we're gonna have to do some follow-up, and so people who take things super fucking literally don't bite this off and run with it, because there's nuance in what we say, and it can be explained better. And that's why I say leave comments so we could break it down a little bit. And then go to my channel, subscribe, go watch my videos, go comment on them, subscribe to my channel, follow me on Instagram. And if you want coaching and direction and something about that we talked about tonight, hit me up, go to my website. You can book a call on my website, or you can DM me and we'll set up a time from there.
Awesome. Thank you, brother. And Mark, to you.
Yeah, it's great to be here tonight. Joe, I think I was on the Dragon ship with you one time. I think I've met you before.
Yeah, we have.
Yeah, it's good to see you again. And
You too,
great
man.
to be here. Great show. What I would tell the people listening, and for the men, don't believe what we said. Just go out and try. Try both ways and see what happens. Because I'm talking from experience. I know Joe is too. We've tried both ways, and we've seen other men do the same thing. So you don't have to believe it. Just take what you need, leave the rest, see what works. Try it. You can find me on Instagram at Mark's Inspiration, and on YouTube at Mark Daniels, Mark's Inspiration, on TikTok at Mark's Inspiration. And I put out a video every other day, and that's about all I got. Great to be here. Good to see you again, Joe, and thanks for inviting me.
Great to see you. Awesome show.
Awesome show. For myself, I coach people on how to quit addiction. So weed, porn, whatever it may be, alcohol even. That's my coaching service. So you can find the link in the description below, or go to my YouTube channel, Sobriety University, and we can have a little call. We can see where you are in your journey. Maybe the 12 steps is for you, and I help people find that route to get there as well, because a lot of people don't even know about it. Maybe it isn't for you. Maybe you want to try to get clean and then dive into it later. I always lead people that I coach to those groups because I think they're amazing and they're free. So hit me up in the link below. And appreciate everyone tuning in tonight. This was a very intense and powerful show, and we're gonna have more of these, because this is stuff that a lot of young men, including myself, need to hear, so we can become the people we're meant to be and not fall into that silliness. Also, guys, last note, if you are looking to invest, the one of the biggest investments you can invest in right now is box wine and cat food, because of the rise of single women. So keep that in mind if you're looking for a new opportunity. And with that, guys, we'll talk to you in the next one. Peace.